All right, so we're back. Just finished performing at Domination 2019 here with my brother R. Swift. We was talking about the legacy of cross movement, and we were talking about just kind of the weird divide there was in Christian hip hop around 2008, 2009, and it really, I think, kind of started changing with a couple brothers. Yourself, me, Prop, Lecrae, dudes that just kind of started being friends. You know what I'm saying? Not doing a bunch of records together, just being homies.
Yeah.
And you were telling a story about how initially that you received some pushback for that.
Yeah. So I like I was saying, when I met Propaganda and I was going back to Philly to talk about, you know, my weekend and the fact that I met Propaganda and he was just a real cool dude. I got some pushback, like, oh, you know, we don't talk to them and, you know, don't build with them. And I think, like, it wasn't the fact that, you know, there was anything seriously wrong with Prop or anything like that. I think it was more of assumptions that come with philosophies and stuff like that. And so I think based on like the philosophy that they were upholding, like I think there were unfair judgments on other people. Right. And I think if cross movement, if anybody from the camp is honest, they would say, yo, we've made some unfair judgments on people. And, you know, just like I feel like there were unfair judgments even on cross movement, like that people had of cross movement. But like I think what we started to see was when you strip away, like, when you hold to a philosophy but you don't make the philosophy God, and you're able to value people who might not share the same philosophy
or might completely disagree.
Yeah, they might disagree, but you still see the value in that person, whether they agree with where you stand or not. And truth of the matter is, a lot of these philosophies that divided people weren't essential things. They were kind of
and to be specific, we're talking about, I would say, the methodology of how we as Christians are supposed to interact in hip hop. Specifically, how overtly Christian and Christocentric did your content have to be?
Exactly. And even like, but you got to understand, right? So I'm in the cross movement camp, and at the same time, I'm doing all these secular shows, and I'm talking to them. I remember we was all in New York City. We was at a restaurant, and I asked the fellas, like, yo, would you ever, like, because like right before this happened, I had just opened up for like the Roots and Jill Scott. There was an Ill Philly concert going on, and I had just opened up for that concert, and we was in New York City. I said, yo, would y'all ever, rock at a secular concert? And they was like, oh no.
Really?
Like, nah, they come to us. And so,
wow.
Do I see a problem with that stance? No, right? What you're called to do is what you're called to do. Right. And if you're called to be the person that waters the seed instead of being the one out planting the seed, I'm totally fine with it. What I'm not fine with is you feeling like everybody has to be the waterer.
Right. And that was the issue. That was ultimately the issue. It's like, what y'all are doing is dope. Y'all rap well. The beats are fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, the shows are crazy.
And you
everything
teach
is good.
well, like, and that's great. Just don't force me, who's a planter, to feel like I have to be in the cookie cutter of the waterer. Right. You know what I mean?
And that felt like I had one conversation with Fanatic before all this, and then I hung out with Deuce a couple times, who I actually I love Deuce. And me and Manny have a relationship, you know what I'm saying? And Manny was on the label, not the group, right? But they would never, I've never heard them outright say it, but when you're so extreme or you come off so extreme, your fans will say it for you.
Yeah, like I said, like, I believe that a lot of times their fan base did things in their name or in their energy, and people automatically assume that this is where cross movement stands. Right. The problem in that,
they never corrected
it.
Yeah.
It was never like, no, like, and so what I would have liked to have seen, and I think in that time, it was kind of taboo for them. And it was like, well, if we vouch or correct it with these certain people, then everybody's just gonna think we free, whatever. So I think they felt like they had to take a stance, and that stance for them didn't allow them to co-sign other people. Who
Now, do you
make
feel like
music.
CCM was involved in, or do you feel like the market was predominantly and uniquely Christian hip hop? Like, were they doing a lot of like festivals?
Yeah,
like white evangelical.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of that. But the funny thing is, that world isn't like that. You know what I mean? Like, you have.
Well, here's my philosophy. Here's my theory. My theory is what they did worked because they were so overtly Christian.
They made a market.
They made a market, but specifically they were safe to the white CCM audience, right? Which if Toby Mac wants to make a song about love or whatever, it's okay. But like this rap stuff, like it better be about Jesus or y'all ain't coming to our church. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I don't know how much of that they like intentionally played into, but then they had to do that. It was survival. Like they had, because there was a degree of racism within the context of Christian music and the Christian community. So if you guys are young black dudes from the hood and you dress and you're culturally that,
right?
Well, your theology better be perfect. And you better talk about Jesus in every lyric. You know what I mean? And I don't know how much of that was intentional. I don't know how much of that, but I definitely think that they kind of hit this perfect intersection of all these things clicking, and then they got elevated to like this idolatrous level. You know what I'm saying? The mentality was idolized. They were idolized, and then there came the subsequent fall.
Yeah, I think it definitely played a part. There was a pressure, because you got to understand, like, all other music was fine, but hip hop was the devil's music.
Yeah.
And so if you're gonna do anything in the name of hip hop, not only does your theology have to be on point, but you have to be blameless and spotless. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you almost can't have a flaw, because if you do, the church is definitely throwing you out. You know what I mean? And so there's been an uphill battle, and that's why I disagree with a lot of how they went about communicating certain things. I do understand that they had to take a very hard stand because of the position they were in. But at the same time, I'm like, man, in growth, like, we could have made some adjustments.
Now let's talk about what did you think about, and this is all common knowledge, so this isn't to like rehash or to throw anybody under the bus, but when both Ambassador and The Truth had their marital issues, there were these statements made by the label to essentially like it was a pastor that had a moral breakdown. You know what I'm saying? And I get that they held that prestige and that level of like, they saw themselves as ministers of the gospel first. So then when there's a moral breakdown, you got to carry it as such, right? But what did you think about the label making these statements and just like the subsequent downfall of everything?
I think the label was in a funny situation, because it's not like people saw Cross Movement as a label and it's just the artist that messed up, and as a label you can never mind those artists and keep on going. It, like, even though Cross Movement was a label, I think people almost looked at it as like a church. You know what I mean? Like, yo, something go wrong, you gotta have discipline. You know what I mean? And so I think like they were in a position where when you talk about Ambassador, right, or you talk about Truth, it's like, well, at the time, like, what church is gonna hold them accountable? You know what I mean? Like, does a church at that point like have the position in their lives to sit them down, right? And you know, with Ambassador's church, I think that did happen. But I think Cross Movement Records was kind of in a funny position where they felt like, because of how strong our stance has been, surely we can't let this go without making some type of a statement. And I think when
the statement, I feel like, only made things messier, because then it was on media takeout. Well, it was on all the gossip blogs.
It was on media takeout before they made a statement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember the morning it happened.
Dang.
Yeah. So like, but I think what happened was,
so maybe that was in response.
It's like, you damned if you do, you damned if you don't, right? Okay. So it's like, if we don't make any statement, we're looking passive, right? But if we make a statement, somebody's bound to not like how we worded it or the fact that we came out and spoke on it. So I felt like Cross Movement Records was in kind of a funny space, but also like I think the statement had to show that there was disapproval for the sake of the other people on the label. Because now that this happened, you have two of the lead dudes on the label that, you know, unfortunately are going through this situation, but now the rest of us are being looked at funny. And so the rest of us are being looked at like, oh, so y'all must be down with this too.
Yeah.
And so I think there had to be some type of distinction, like, and you know, whether that was done with the right verbiage or not, you know, I don't know. I think that's up to interpretation, but I think there had to be something that said, this is wrong. We know it's wrong. We disapprove of what happened. However, we are committed to restoring our brothers back to right standing. And so I don't remember the statement verbatim, but like I'm hoping that the redemptive narrative was there.
Yeah, and I think what happened was the subsequent, like after that, you then saw, not overnight, but you saw Reach step up and kind of become like the juggernaut that they are now. Cross Movement essentially dissolved. And then you saw the pendulum swing the opposite extreme, where it went from we only rap in churches, we only rap about Jesus, to now we don't want to do anything Christian related. We're not Christian artists. We're not Christian rappers.
Yes, the pendulum swing. I love talking about this.
But it wasn't like it was unwarranted. The pendulum swung because of what had happened. And I'm sure there was behind the scenes stuff and business stuff that was also weird.
But I think the pendulum swing actually started before, right? I think this perpetuated the pendulum swing. I think it was because you got to understand, Christian hip hop was kind of very new concept-ish, right? And we're like still learning, how do we like marry our convictions with this culture, maintain freedom, and at the same time not forsake responsibility. What is responsibility? And so I think like we're trying to figure out how to make this work. And I think that Cross Movement took a strong stance, and that became the standard.
Right.
But really, there's more than one way to do it. I don't think there's just a one way is the right way. I think that there are many different ways to approach it that are favorable. And so I think that because of the standard and the pressure to follow that, it made people hesitant to be free. And I think that when this happened, it's almost like people felt like it was a release for them, like, oh, so this isn't the perfect way. Like, and I think what it was they looked at the way that you know, Ambassador spoke and the rest of the fellas spoke and carried themselves, and mind you, they were just trying to be the best believers they can be, and as they knew how. Like, Cross Movement didn't know all the answers. Like, who gave them that? You know what I mean? It was like they was just trying to figure it out. Like, so I don't think that they, like, Cross Movement never came out and said we're the standard. I think they went with how they felt like it should be done, and I think they vocalized that that's how they felt it should be done. And so I think as a result, if you vocalize that so hard, and you don't connect with anybody who feels opposite, then in other words, you're saying you don't rock with anybody who doesn't think the same way. And so it's like you're saying it without saying it, right? And so like when that happens, I think, you know, when they fell, it was more of a thing like, oh, these dudes aren't perfect. They're human, which means they can get something wrong. okay, so like, who am I trying to be?
Right.
And I think everybody felt like, to a certain extent, like they're the ones that we should model ourselves after, instead of like, man, do what God has called you to do and be diligent in that. Be obedient in who God is telling you to be. And, you know, hey, you can learn from people, but you don't have to model yourself to be that man. You know what I mean? Be who you're supposed to be. So I think that when that happened, it made people feel like, man, maybe I put too much trust into their ability to perform as humans.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Good.
Like,
that's good. That's good. And I think so much to learn from that. You know what I'm saying? So much to learn about not, you know, positioning your crew to be in an echo chamber where you just hear people that agree with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's a lot to learn in terms of just some of the maybe the business missteps. You know what I'm saying? The elevation and the idolatry of people, to put them on this extreme pedestal, and then when they fall, it's like everything
it's the end of the world.
Right. What do you think the trajectory of Christian hip hop is now? Like, where do you think it is now, and what do you think it's going?
So right now, I feel like Christian hip hop is. It's hard for me to say. Like, I can't say that Christian hip hop is as a whole is anywhere specifically, and I think that's a good thing. But I also like. So I feel like the whole genre shouldn't be judged in one position. Okay. Like, oh, we're all here and we're all there. I think that there is beauty in the different lanes that people occupy. Right. And so Christian hip hop should be a reflection of Christianity. And so that is like, we don't all do the same exact things, but that doesn't mean we're not fighting for the same team, right? So if you're on offense and I'm on defense, like, I'm concerned with the defensive side of the ball. You're concerned with scoring points. We do two different tasks. But I see your task is necessary for the team to win. You see my task is necessary for the team to win. So, like, hopefully we're getting to a place where we can honor people in their spaces without feeling like they have to occupy the space that we occupy, or we have to occupy the same space that they occupy. I think we have to look back and we have to see, man, like, this dude is killing it over there. How can I support that brother in what he's doing? I'll never walk over there because that's just not my space. But I fully support that brother in what he's doing. You know what I mean? So, like, hopefully we're in a place of humility and realizing that it's not the lane that you choose that wins people to the Lord. Is the Holy Spirit convicting the heart of man. And the Holy Spirit can do that with or without your rhyme schemes or however you choose to present it. You know what I mean? Like, I think God could utilize the space where you are, but when you put the weight of salvation on Christ and the Holy Spirit to draw men to Himself, then we have to take a step back. Yeah, you know what I mean. So,
you just put out a record recently.
I did.
That was pretty incredible.
Thank you, brother.
I really enjoyed it. Like, I was like, the sneak attack with the sneak release, surprise release joint. I didn't even see this joint coming. All the next thing I know, you posted.
It's called No Promo Budget. Let's go. That's the new wave.
Talk about the record, but talk about the record, because people need to go listen to the record. Talk about how has it been transitioning from being a part of a machine that was distributed through Sony to the indie grind.
Yeah. So the project is called Youre Welcome 2. To me, it's like a double entendre. Like, I'm very into double entendre, double meanings. And so Youre Welcome is like, you're welcome into my world, to my thoughts and my perspective. But I'm also saying you're welcome as a response to you thanking me later. Right? So anybody who knows me knows that I am the most humble, cocky dude you'll ever know. So, right? And so, like, I'm totally confident in my ability to do what I do well. But I would like to think that I'm humble enough to know that I'm not the end all be all. It's the mission and the focus is a lot bigger than me. So You're Welcome. It's like, I believe that I'm an artist that brings something unique to the table.
Right.
There was once upon a time where I felt like quitting because I didn't have the resources that I wanted to have. But I did. But then I realized that my voice is my resource, and the fact that I have a conviction and I offer something and bring passion to the table that I feel like hip hop needs. Yeah. And so I'm gonna continue to be faithful in that. And so I'm giving a perspective that I feel like there's not a lot of in hip hop. And for that, you'll thank me later. You might not thank me now, but 5 years from now, a song is gonna hit you and you're gonna be like, dang, like that hit. You know what I mean? And so I'm saying, yo, you're welcome. This is my offering. You'll thank me later, but you're welcome in advance. And so,
I love it. How's the transition been though? Because it hasn't been easy.
No, it hasn't, man. Look, man, it's so much better when you have people making the decisions, and I mean, to a certain extent, right? And you have people financing it, and you can come up with ideas, and they can say, look, here's a budget, and you can kind of map it out. It's hard to map it out when you are the budget, and it's like, well, I want to shoot a video when I can afford to shoot a video, and so you have to find ways to be creative. Right. Freely at low cost. And so that's been the thing. It's kind of like learning how to communicate, articulate without being under the water with it. You know what I mean? So it's definitely been different.
But you haven't quit. That's the beautiful part. You kept putting out music, consistently good music. I think this last record might be my best, like my favorite stuff from you yet.
You're not the only person that said that. Yeah. And I thank you for that. Because I'm in a free space, man. Like, I feel like I'm really doing that I don't care music. I'm doing, and I've always done good music and great music, but I think the spirit behind the music is different this time, right? So I don't feel the need to be safe because I don't gain anything from being safe. Like, I just walk away feeling like, man, I should have said this. And it's like, no, I'm gonna do me, and I'm having fun. I'm doing records. I'm trying new things. My young brothers and sisters, they giving me power. Shout out 1K Few, RG, K-Mo. Like, these are brothers.
DJ Michael.
Yeah, Michael V. Like, Michael V is like my little brother, and he'll tell you, like, that's been my little bro, and man, I've had to put my foot in his chest, and we've had to do some tug of war, in his growing stages. But like this,
we talked about it when we had him.
Yeah, this dude has grown to be just a respectable man. I love what he's doing. I love that brother from the bottom of my heart, and he's one of the dudes that keep me energized too. He'll tell me like, yo, Swift, like, yo, you trash for doing that. Like, you gotta, you know what I mean? Like, what you doing? How come you ain't promote that? Like, you need to promote that better. Yeah. You need to do more posts. You need to blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And, he's energizing me. And all my young brothers and sisters do it. I see Wande, and she's hustling. I'm looking at Wande like, dang, I need to step my grind up. Like, and so, like, I just love the young energy. Yes. And I love the fact that they love me.
Yes.
They like, I have no problem with being the uncle. And they like, yo, that's Swift, that's Unc, that's Big Bro. That's hey, I'm here for it. And I love it. I think they bring something beautiful to the table. They bring an energy to the table, but we bring wisdom and experience to the table. And I think that neither one of those things should cancel the other out. You know what I mean? I think they're great together.
That's good.
So
any final thoughts, closing? Just in terms of everything we talked about. We talked about a lot.
Yeah. Final thing in closing is, you wake up in the morning, you look on Instagram, you talk to people, everybody's telling you how you should think, what you should say, the type of person you should be, type of influence you should have. And so constantly every day we're being faced with, oh, you should be this, you should think like that, you should do that. And it almost sends us a message that it's acceptable to be anybody except yourself.
Wow.
And so my thing is this. When you get ready to go to sleep at night, and you look in that mirror, you have to love the person that looks back at you. If you don't love that person that looks back at you, then it's all for nothing.
Wow, that's good.
And so, like, how much are you willing to sacrifice to be accepted? There's a difference between being tolerated and being loved.
That's good.
And I think that we confuse the two. We do whatever we can do to be accepted and tolerated. But to be loved is for people to accept how you are and who you are and love you for who you are. And not just love you, but value you. Yeah. See, there's a difference. It's one thing to say, oh, I accept you. And another thing to look at you and say, man, who you are is important. You are valuable.
That's good.
And so value the person in the mirror every night.
That's good.
And you've done your job. Please God only. Amen.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you following my brother Swift on all platforms. We'll link it up below in the description.
Yes, sir.
Check out that You're Welcome Part 2, man.
Yes, please.
Amazing.
You're welcome too. I love you all.
Amazing record. And thank you guys for watching, man. Y'all be blessed.